thank you so much for coming to our Visual Storytelling Experience webinar today. My name, as I mentioned, Shlomi Ron. I'm the co-founder of the Visual Storytelling Institute. I'm going to be instructor of that course that's going to start on February 9th. We also have here Ville Alio, another instructor. So he's going to introduce himself in a second. A little bit about my background. I have over 20 years of experience in digital marketing, having worked at IBM, Nokia, American Express, and others in a variety of digital marketing roles. And as you can see, we have a third instructor, Alex de Carvalho. Some of you know him. He's I call him like the social media guru of Miami. He has this 8,000 member social media group on Facebook, which is phenomenal. He's also working for IBM as a worldwide social media expert. And we also have Ville Alio. Ville, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, sure. I'll say hi. And greetings from the lab in Wynwood, Miami, and here at the office. So my name is Ville Alio, originally from Finland, in the Nordics. I'm a filmmaker and a marketing strategist with experience both in the corporate marketing world and then running production houses, mostly back in Europe, video, audio, other marketing assets, and an agency background as well. But I'll talk about that more later.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Ville. A little bit about the Visual Storytelling Institute, VSI. So we just formed the business last year, and we really consider ourselves the only visual literacy platform that really merged two disciplines, the power of storytelling with the effectiveness of visual media, in order to create profitable customer engagements. So what we do is we run visual storytelling workshops, consulting engagement. We've developed a 9-step My Visual Story framework that I'm going to share with you. Conferences, thought leadership to introduce this new discipline we call visual storytelling to the masses. A little bit about visual storytelling. So if you were to look at Google Trends and search for the term visual storytelling, so you could see here on the screen in the past 10 years, there were less than 100 searches for that term. And not surprising, it's relatively new. Most of the searches, as you could see here, tends to revolve around photography, entertainment, and so forth. Nothing in the context of marketing yet. So you're probably asking yourself what visual storytelling is. So this is my definition, and it's really a marketing strategy that has three components. One is you gotta tell a story in 3 parts. 3 parts means, you have a setup, conflict, and resolution. So that's what defines a story. 2, you want to place your customer, your target audience, at the heart of the story. And lastly, you want to deliver your story through some immersive visual media. It could be video, images, all the way up to virtual reality and augmented reality. And you do that in order to create engaging, profitable customer engagements. So that's my definition for a visual storytelling campaign. A little bit about the VSX course. It's going to be a full semester, 12-week program that's going to cover really the next generation in marketing. And I'm going to talk about why it's so critical these days. The class experience is going to be based on a formal presentation, but with lots of exercises and hands-on drills, where you're going to come out from the course with not only the knowledge of how to create your own business story, but also you're going to come out with a brief video that's going to describe your service or product that you want to focus on as a final project. Since we talked about stories having 3 parts, I figured, it's a great way to kind of explain to you the journey of visual storytelling in 3 parts as well. What's the story behind storytelling? So from the setup perspective, you know, what is the backstory of this concept is that if you look at influence evolution, you know, we started with one to many. Think about, you know, the 50s, the 60s. Most marketers have very few channels to communicate, TV, radio, print. Same message went out to the same audience. Everybody consumed the same content. We're moving forward, let's say kind of mid-90s, we have email marketing. Potentially people could respond back to a marketer's message. And fast forward today, what you see here is really not only companies can communicate to their audiences and they can respond, but also, you know, the audience has the power to communicate among themselves and drive more awareness and change perceptions and sometimes even fortunes for brands. So the red dots you see here, this is what we call like the mega influencers that are part of the audience, but they have garnered, you know, this million of followers that now brands consider them as a way to control the brand perception. So amazing difference from where we started one to many to where we are today. And that brings us to discuss, now that you understand the, you know, the background, let's talk about the conflict. So the conflict is really driven by 2 forces. The first one, we are really, as you all know, bombarded with the information that is only growing. You know, the latest stat talk about 4.7 billion content pieces that are produced every day. And this, you know, content overload is driven by 3 main drivers. One is obviously the internet adoption. We're talking about 3 billion people around the world with internet access, and the emergence of social media that allows them to communicate. And lastly, the amazing adoption of mobile devices. So not only they can communicate, but they can do it on the go. So that actually brings up this trend to 4 out of 5 people accessing social media through their mobile device and constantly producing or consuming content. So the mobile is really one of the components that is really important to look at, because as we all know, we kind of live with our mobile devices, and the latest prediction from Cisco talk about 7% of our world mobile data is going to be driven by video. So 2 elements here to think about. One is the mobile first penetration into communication, and the second one is the dominant force of video. When you think about video today, you could see that this is the latest report from Vidyard from November 2016, and you could see that explainer videos are leading the pack in terms of the type of videos produced today by marketers. These are primarily used for, you find them on home pages of websites to kind of explain in a fun way what the product or service is all about. So with this onslaught of information, we have on the flip side, decreasing amount of attention spans. This is one of the fun stats that's been ran on the net. The fact that we have a human attention span 8 seconds, 1 second less than a goldfish. So just to give you a quick sense of the conflict, you know, we have the information overload, decreasing attention spans, and the result is that businesses of any shape are currently struggling to get their voices heard. And the solution of what we provide here is really the visual storytelling is the next generation marketing discipline that is going to cut through the clutter and make your message much more impactful. So we're going to talk now about visual storytelling, which is, as you could see, the resolution of our story here to that conflict. And visual storytelling is sitting on two foundations. As the name suggests, visual. There is 84% of our communication is expected to be visual by 2018. And this is no incident, because if you look back at the early Stone Ages, the first man 35 years ago started communicating by using his hand to paint a picture of how his day went. Text came back, was actually arrived 32,000 years later. And if you think about the fact that our brain is wired to process visual content much faster than text, and we absorb visual content much better than text, then you could see that the visual aspect in visual storytelling is really the primary road for us to process and share information. The second foundation is naturally storytelling, and storytelling has been around for ages, of course, but only in the past 5 years, marketers have started to take a serious look at storytelling, borrowing some lessons from the Hollywood, and now we could see that 92% of consumer really prefer their brands to tell their messages using stories versus just facts and stats. A good point here is the work of Joseph Campbell. He was an American mythologist. In 1949, he published a book about the hero with 1,000 faces. And that book was really a seminal book in a sense that he analyzed mythologies from around the world and found that all of them has the same components. And then he came up with this monomyth, or the hero's journey, that describes those mythologies. So Hollywood saw that hero's journey model and loved it. George Lucas adopted it to his Star Wars series. And as I mentioned, marketers started to pay attention to the storytelling, the hero's journey. There's a wide variety of storytelling models out there, from improvisation and from theatrical and drama. So us at VSI, we kind of analyzed the storytelling models that are available, and that's how we came up with our framework, the My Visual Story framework. And the first step is really story making. And what we do here is really working to define your brand story. So in the course, we're going to go through the steps of the story making. So if you have a product or service you want to focus on, we're going to work with you to develop that business story. So at the end of the day, you're going to have your big story, why people should care about your product or service. Story visualizing. Ville, do you want to say a few words?
Sure. So story visualizing is the second step in the visual storytelling framework. And in story visualizing, we take the story that we just crafted in the story making, which is a bit more strategic look on your business and on your story. And in story visualizing, we take it a couple notches more on a tactical side, and start actually crafting videos and infographics and animations, images, or other visuals that convey the message of your brand story. And just like the story making was split into three parts, also story visualizing is split into three parts, and we'll go through these parts, or we walk these steps during the course at MDC. Just quickly, the first step in visualizing is scripting stage. We look at good practices and tools how to plan and script your stories, whether they are videos or other visuals. We create assets. We learn how to shoot a little better video, whether shooting on professional gear or just on your smartphone. We take a look at some other visual platforms. And third step in story visualizing is the editing, where especially when you're talking about more like a documentary style or reality style material, that's kind of the step where the story comes together. So we look at some good practices and good tools to help you edit your stories together.
Awesome, thanks, Ville. The last phase of our framework is storytelling. In our lingo, it's really the marketing. Basically, you create a business story in the story making, you put a visual face to that story using a brief video or other formats. And now it's time to distribute your visual story across channels. So in this phase, we talk about the storytelling strategy. We review a few engagement tactics, both proactive and reactive, working with influencers. And lastly, we finish about how do you measure success of your distributed visual stories. So we talk about tactical as well as strategic performance KPIs. So when we think about, now we understand what is visual storytelling, let's talk about how the ecosystem looks like. So who are the players? So it's kind of mirroring our three phases. So under the story making, basically behind each item here that you see, there's either an agency, a service, or a software product company. So you could see here under story making, mostly it's a service-oriented players, research companies, agencies, think tanks, groups like VSI that develop the business story. And then under story visualizing, think about, this is where all the different visual media formats are included. So videos, it could be, companies that produce video explainers or video tutorials. All the permutation of videos are in this category. Images, same thing. You can think of, e-cards, pictograms, any image format that you can think of, it's represented here. Think about Canva, for example. There's a bunch of WYSIWYG online tools that allows you to produce infographics, video explainers, and others. And of course, VR and AR, it's our new entrance to this category. And here you'll find not only players in the hardware side, like headset makers like HTC Vive and others, but also content provider that are actually creating the content for VR and AR. And the last piece is really the storytelling. And this is about, so if story visualizing is really the content side, storytelling is really the pipelines to communicate those stories. So obviously there are editorial calendar tools, and most important, you see here the visual social networks like the Instagram, the Facebook of the world, YouTube, of course. Not to forget visual messaging like WhatsApp and Snapchat. These are all becoming more important as traditional social networks like Facebook becomes overcrowded. Digital signage, you see them in shopping mall. These are digital displays that you can communicate your visual story on. User-generated content, advocacy. Story selling is a new trend of using a business story as part of your selling strategy. And what we do right now, doing this webinar, is a great example of the live streaming aspect of the visual storytelling. And then lastly, it's data storytelling. You finish your campaign, you want to tell your story, how your campaign performed. So there's a whole category of vendors that both provide command centers or data analytics, data visualization that goes into that category. I want to switch now that you understand the world of visual storytelling, to talk a little bit about the course. So who is it for? So It's, as you know, it's a continuing education program, so it's available for everybody, but these are some of the groups that we thought worth mentioning. So students, obviously, that are considering the next future career, this is a great opportunity to jump on the great development in marketing. Marketers, absolutely, either folks who work in the client or agency side, you know, early or mid-career, or people that just want to get exposure to this new discipline. It's a great opportunity as well. We talked about sales and business development in the context of story selling. So this is a fantastic, powerful tool to have when you want to communicate the values of your product or service. Anybody that's in a point of a career changing, looking for the next gig, definitely worth checking out this course. And most, you know, this is also important for entrepreneurs, you know, folks that are currently working on a new product or service and maybe looking to pitch it to investors, looking for the best, the most impactful story to kind of rise above the noise. So that's a perfect course for you. And PRs that want to expand from outside from their traditional way of communicating. Some of the course learner objectives. We're going to talk a lot about why visual storytelling is so powerful. Some of it you've already heard today. And then we're going to switch to our framework and going to go through our 9-step framework. As I mentioned, story making, visualizing, and telling. That's going to give you a tangible grip on how you can turn your business story to a visual campaign. All students really going to go out with really not only a business story, but a physical video clip that you created. No video production background is necessary. You could use your own smartphone. And then you're going to have also your strategic plan for how to distribute your visual story. So you could apply this immediately to your either business or your project or product or service that you're working on. In terms of learning a style, we're going to start, once you guys registered, we're going to send you a pre-course survey just to get a sense of your background so we can customize the course to your needs. And during the course, you're going to have lots of hands-on exercises. You could work either independently or form a team. You can decide on either choosing your own product or service, or if you don't have one, we can actually assign you a product from a local Miami company. We're also going to offer a VSX private Slack account where you can share your experiences with other students and also raise any questions for us, the instructors, if you need help with anything. And about a month after the course is over, we're going to have a post-course webinars just to kind of check how everybody's doing and kind of exchange you know, experiences on, you know, how your implementation went. This is just a kind of going a little bit deeper into the course outline. So, you know, the first phase is the story making. You could see here, we're going to start with a general introduction. And then we're going to move directly into the framework. And again, each class is going to be focused on how to implement those principles to your product, to your service. So everything is super actionable and applied. We're not going to talk about a whole lot of hype theory. It's going to be super actionable and applied to whatever you're trying to achieve. We're going to also include some guest speakers on class 4. And just to keep everybody on pace, we're going to have a milestone after class 4 just to kind of see the outcome from the story making phase where everybody could present their business narrative presentation. This is basically a business story statement of why people should care about your product or service. And then as we move along, we're going to enter the story visualizing, where Vila is going to train you guys on how to turn your story into a video clip using your smartphone. So he going to go through the steps he mentioned earlier, and then we're going to finish up with the storytelling, how to distribute your story across channels, and we're going to finish up with class 12, which is we call it the VSX Film Fest, where we're going to have final presentation of your project. So you basically will share the outputs from each of the three phases, you know, the story statement, the video, and your distribution strategy. Some key dates to remember. The 7th, February 7th is the deadline to apply. The 9th is where we're going to have the first class. Last class is going to be May 4th. And keep in mind that our class number when you try to register on the Idea Center website is 2660. It's a once a week meeting, every Thursday, 6:30, and the cost is $999. A little bit of some examples to kind of whet your appetite about visual storytelling. This is an example from Airbnb. If you go to airbnb.com/stories, you'll see that they have a great page there where they have videos that the host tell the story of why people should book their apartment or house for their vacation. So it's a great personal exercise of letting you into their world. It's very human, authentic, inviting. It's really covering the three conditions of visual storytelling that I mentioned. There's the 3-act stories, and also there is the visual element that, in this case, it's a video. Other one is Herschel Backpack. You could see here, it's a user-generated contest where people can submit Instagram pictures with the backpack featured. And then Marriott did a virtual reality 8 cities tour where they used a VR booth to whisk people to exotic Marriott hotel locations. So I just want to finish up. This is, again, where you could sign up for the course. The course is 206660. And I really urge you to do that, because, again, regardless of what you do today, at the end of the day, nobody cares about your product anymore because they are bombarded by too many products and messages every day, but they're going to love your big story. So our role here in this course is to kind of uncover the stories each one of you already have, leveraging our framework and bring it out to life. Here's my information. And with that, I'll ask you if you have any questions. Yeah, I can send the instructions of how to sign up after we finish here today. I'm going to send an email recap for everybody. Regarding student discount, I'm not sure. This is something that your best bet is to reach out directly to the Idea Center and ask them. Any other questions? Okay. The course dates, yeah, so I'll just switch to the slide here. Here you go. So the dates are on the screen right now. And we're going to start on the 9th. Deadline to apply is the 7th. So really make sure you apply as early as possible, because we really want to help you guys, find your stories and own it. So with that, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. I'm going to create this recording. I'm going to turn it into YouTube so you can have access to it if you need to. And I'm going to email you information about how to sign up. Thank you, and have a great day.